Good morning, students. Today we are going to do one lesson from science, chapter number 5, periodic classification of elements. Now I am doing this chemistry lesson because actually I intended to do one lesson from biology, but I am doing this lesson for the simple reason that you have a test, a 25 marks or I think a 50 marks test you have, okay, in which this lesson is included. So I'm going to do it right now instead of doing it later. I'll do it right now so that you can benefit and you can prepare for the 15 marks test. Alright, so chapter 5, periodic classification of elements, and this is an important chapter because it actually shows how important elements, their discoveries, their properties, okay, the history of the discovery of elements and how they were classified. Okay, remember, classification of elements is extremely important for the simple reason that it makes the study of chemistry very easy. If you do not have proper classification, there would be complete chaos. For example, in your own school, okay, all the students are classified according to age and they are put in different classes. Not only in different classes, but they are put into different sections. Students of 10th standard may be put into 4 different sections: section A, section B, section C, and section D. Okay, and boys are grouped together, girls are grouped together, and that way. So this is all type of classification. Classification is extremely important because it makes the task of doing whatever you are supposed to do, it makes it easier, and further progress or further achievements can be made easier because you can study things easily and make life a lot easier by simply classifying things. Even plants and animals are classified into different types of groups. For example, aquatic animals, animals that live in water, okay, that is one. Terrestrial animals, animals that live on land, okay. Arboreal, creatures that are sort of tree climbers, tree dwellers, okay. And arboreal also means living in the air, that means the birds. In other words, classification of anything makes our life easier. When you classify, there is less chaos, and when there is less chaos, it is easier to make progress by studying something. Okay, so for example, in this case, we are talking about elements. Now today, of course, there are 118 elements known. Okay, 118 different elements are known. Out of these, 94 are naturally occurring elements, and the remaining 24 are not naturally occurring. They are artificially contrived or artificially produced in the laboratory. Okay, so the naturally occurring elements are 94, and out of all these 94 elements, all of them are not extremely reactive, and they are not found to the same extent in nature. Some are more. For example, oxygen and hydrogen, they are often found in the combined form, in form of compounds. Okay, and therefore they are complete. Hydrogen and oxygen both are reactive, and their hydrides and oxides are found in different types of compounds. So you see, some elements are available widely, some are not so widely available. Look at our atmosphere, for example. 78% is nitrogen, almost 21% is oxygen, and the remaining are other gases. But you can see nitrogen as well as hydrogen, they account for more than 98% of the Earth's atmosphere. So nitrogen, hydrogen, oxygen, okay, these are, and carbon also, these are elements which are found widely on the Earth's surface, whether it's in the Earth's crust in compound form or in the atmosphere. But studying different elements, okay, makes the work of chemistry, makes the study of chemistry a lot easier. Alright, now you see, the work of classifying elements was undertaken in the last 150 odd years, 200 years, okay, and gradually classification of elements has evolved, and today we have the modern periodic table. Now, as far as this exam goes, okay, this particular board exam, the next year in what year, I think it will be in the month of May. In that exam, the whole chapter is not there. Only the last part, that is the modern periodic table, is there. But I am going to take you through the whole chapter, and we'll put special emphasis on the last part of the chapter, that is the modern periodic table, because it is the most important part and it is included in this year's exam also. So let's go ahead. Okay, in class 9 we have learned that matter around us is present in the form of elements, compounds, and mixtures, and the elements contain atoms of one type only. For example, atoms of sodium can be found in sodium only. Okay, for example, if it's a compound like water, then you find In pure water, you will find atoms of hydrogen and atoms of oxygen only. Okay, carbon dioxide, you will find atoms of carbon and atoms of oxygen only. Okay, so in any element, for example, a block of iron, if you got an iron rod, pure iron, then you will find atoms of iron only. A magnesium strip contains atoms of magnesium only. Okay, do you know how many elements are still known, are till known date, till date? Okay, are known till date. At present, 118 elements are known to us. All of these elements have different properties. Out of these, only 94 are naturally occurring elements. The rest are artificially produced in the lab. As different elements were being discovered, scientists gathered more and more information about the properties of these elements. They found it difficult to organize all that was known about the elements. They started looking for some pattern in their properties, on the basis of which they could study such a large number of elements with ease. You see, chemistry is a very ancient subject, okay, right from the time of the Egyptians and even in ancient India, hundreds of years ago. Chemistry, or what is called alchemy, okay, the chemistry of different compounds, was known in India. Even metallurgy was known in India. Metallurgy is a part of chemistry in a way. Okay, but you see, studying all these different elements and getting to know all of the properties of these elements is not easy, because you got so many different elements, and that is why it is necessary to classify them. For example, metals and non-metals, that is one classification. Liquids, solids, and solids, liquids, and gases, that is another classification. You can classify elements into different types. You have to have a fundamental property by which you can classify all the elements, whether you can use atomic mass or atomic number. We'll come to that. Okay, different. The earliest beginning, in the beginning, you see, the earliest classification was mainly about atomic mass. Chemists, you see, scientists and chemists, they use what is called atomic mass as the basis of classification. Later on, okay, the modern periodic table, atomic number became the basis of classification, and that was found to be more suitable, a better and much more perfect way of classification. All right, so they started looking for some patterns in their properties, on the basis of which they could study such a large number of elements with ease. Making order out of chaos, early attempts at classification of elements. You see, for hundreds of years, scientists have tried to classify them, but it has not always worked. But in the beginning, the attempts are always like that. You see, nothing comes out perfectly at once. Nothing happens absolutely. When you plan something, when you try something, it may not. For example, Thomas Alva Edison, you see, he invented the electric bulb, and everybody knows that. Okay, it's a common fact. But what most people don't know is that he failed hundreds of times before he finally found the perfect metal wire, that is tungsten wire. And he found that tungsten was perfect for making the bulb. But before that, he tried out different elements, okay, different metals, and none of them worked very well. So failure is a part of the process of success. And therefore, here also, when it comes to classification of elements, many scientists, many chemists tried out different methods of classification. Some of them worked to some extent, but then later on, as more and more elements were discovered, they found that there were certain limitations. Okay, so we have been learning about how various things or living beings can be classified on the basis of the properties. For example, living things can be classified as reptiles, mammals, as birds. Okay, they can be classified depending upon the properties. Now, you would not classify, for example, a monkey as a bird, simply because we know what a bird looks like, and we know that a bird can fly, basically. Of course, there are some birds which can't fly. Okay, ostrich is too heavy to fly. It's one of the biggest birds, but it is a bird. Okay, but on the whole, you see, we know, when we see a bird, we know that it's a bird, because there are certain characteristic features which make it a bird. In the same way, just as living things can be classified, elements also can be classified on the basis of properties. Even in other situations, we come across instances of organization based on some properties. For example, in a shop, soaps are kept together at one place. Now, this is again, if you go to a supermarket, okay, just imagine if everything was thrown about everywhere. How will you make a choice? How will you be able to find what you want to buy? Okay, but if you go to a supermarket, you will find that everything is neatly arranged on the shelves. Not only neatly arranged, but properly arranged and classified. For example, if you want to buy cosmetics, then there is a certain section of the supermarket where there are cosmetics. You don't have to look anywhere else. Look in that section and you will find all the cosmetics out there. If you want to buy, say, clothes, then clothes may be in one particular section. And if you want to buy eatables, some food items, okay, then that item would be classified or rather separately put onto different shelves where you can easily spot them and buy what you want to buy. So you see, it makes the whole task very easy. So for example, in a shop, soaps are kept together at one place while biscuits are kept together at some other place. Even among soaps, bathing soaps and washing soaps, they are also stacked but separately. Okay. Similarly, scientists made several attempts to classify elements according to their properties and obtain an orderly arrangement out of chaos. The idea is to classify them so that you can study them better. The earliest attempt to classify the elements resulted in grouping the then known elements as metals and non-metals. That was the earliest classification. Okay, a most simple type of classification where all elements were either considered metals or they were considered non-metals. For example, according to that classification, mercury is a liquid metal. Okay, mercury may have been classified as a metal, but actually it's a liquid state also. So in other words, you see, certain properties of metals are such that they may be overlapping with the properties of non-metals. Okay, and similarly, for example, most non-metals are either gases or solids at room temperature. But bromine is a liquid at room temperature. It's a non-metal. So there are always exceptions, and because of these exceptions, the study of the classification of elements into metals and non-metals is okay, but to some extent only. Then there are certain limitations. So the earliest attempt to classify the elements resulted in grouping the then known elements into metals and non-metals. Later, further classification was tried out as our knowledge of elements and their properties also increased. Alright. Now, Dauberniere's classification of elements into triads. Now, Dauberniere was actually a German chemist, a German scientist. Okay, his whole name, his full complete name was Johann, pronounced with a Y. Okay, it's a German name. It is not Johann. It is Johann Wolfgang Dauberniere, a German chemist. Okay, in 1817, that is 200 years ago, tried to arrange the elements with similar properties into groups of 3 elements. Okay, so what he would do is, so for example, lithium, sodium and potassium. Lithium, sodium and potassium forms a group of 3 elements. The word triads means 3. Okay, so he formed triads or groups of 3 elements, and he found that the middle element in those 3 elements, the middle element's atomic mass was the average of the other 2's. Okay, in other words, if lithium, sodium and potassium is there, okay, you add their atomic mass, divide it by 3, and you will get the atomic mass of the middle element. In this case, it is sodium. Okay, so in 1817, Johann Wolfgang Dauberniere, a German chemist, tried to arrange the elements with similar properties into groups. He identified some groups having 3 elements each, so he called these groups triads. Dauberniere showed that when the 3 elements in a group or in a triad, okay, were arranged with were written in the order of increasing atomic masses, the atomic mass of the middle element was roughly, not exactly, but roughly the average of the atomic mass of the other 2 elements. For example, take the triad, okay, 3 elements consisting of lithium, sodium and potassium, and their atomic masses were 6.9 lithium, 23 sodium, 39 potassium. If you add it up, okay, if you add up all of them, you will get, I've just written it here, I believe. Okay, if you add it up, you will see that 39.96. Okay, if you see, just add it up, all the 3, and if you find the average, you add it up, divide it by 3, you get 39.96. Okay, in this case, what I'm trying to tell you is that this one is different. So we'll come to this group, table 5.1. This is about table 5.1 just now, what I just showed you. Okay, but in this case, 6.9, 23 and 39. That if you add it up, okay, then you will get approximately 23. That is the atomic number of sodium. 6.9 plus 23 plus 39 divided by 3, you get the atomic mass of sodium, roughly the atomic mass of sodium. So he called them triads. Okay, now like compare the atomic mass with sodium. Given in table 5.1 are some groups of 3 elements. These elements are arranged downwards in order of increasing atomic masses. Now you can see that's table 5.1. If you look at the table, group A, okay, then there is group B, then there is group C. Group A, sodium, potassium and arsenic. Okay, you can see atomic mass 14, 31, 74.9. Group B, now in atomic mass if you add it up, 14, 31 and 74.9. Okay, this is where I think I had, this is the one which I had actually done here. Okay, see the first group, group A, okay, nitrogen, phosphorus and arsenic. Okay, if you add it up, you get total 14 plus 31 plus 74.9 and you get the total divided by 3, you get 39.96. But you can see the middle one is phosphorus. Phosphorus atomic mass is 31, which is very different from 39.96, which is almost 40. So that means the first one is not a triad. Group A, the elements, the 3 elements of group A, nitrogen, phosphorus and arsenic, they are not a triad. They don't form a triad. But look at group B now. Okay, calcium, atomic weight or atomic mass 40.1, strontium 87.6 and barium 137.3. If you add it up and divide by 3, you get an average of 88.3. Look at here, 88.3. And if you look at it carefully, the middle one, strontium, is almost 88. Okay, so that means the second group B forms a triad. So calcium, strontium and barium form a triad. Look at this group C now. Group C, chlorine, atomic mass 35.5, bromine 79.9 and iodine 126.9. If you add all the 3, divide by 3, you get an average atomic mass of 80.76, which is very close to bromine, which is 79.9, which is about 80. So bromine is very close to the atomic mass of the average of all the 3. That means that group C is also a triad. So in all the 3 groups, group A, group B and group C, there are 3 elements. Okay, but first group, according to Daubeney, the first group is not a triad because the average atomic mass of the group is 39.96 and the middle element, phosphorus, atomic mass is only 31. So it's not a triad. But group B and group C, when you find their atomic masses, average of atomic mass of all 3, it is very close to the middle one. And therefore group B and group C is a triad, but not group A. Alright, so that was, this is table 5.1. Okay, if you look at it carefully, the same thing is written. You will find that groups B and C form Daubeney's triads. Daubeney could identify only 3 triads from the elements known at that time. Hence, the system of classification into triads was not found to be useful. So you can see in table 5.2, the 3 triads which Daubeney found: lithium, sodium and potassium, calcium, strontium and barium, chlorine, bromine and iodine. So totally he found only 3 triads. But at that time very few elements were known, about 56 elements were known at that time. So you see, because only that many elements were known and he formed 3 triads, at least his attempt at classification was useful. So although Daubeney's attempts at classification are not used today, it does not mean that his contribution was not very useful. His contribution was very useful because later on other scientists, other chemists used this classification to classify in a different way, and they used these ideas also, and that is why even Daubeney's contribution is noteworthy. Alright, so that was now a little bit about Daubeney. Johann Wolfgang Daubeney, born 1780, died 1849. Okay, studied as a pharmacist at Munchberg in Germany, and then studied chemistry at Strasbourg. Eventually he became, these are all German cities, eventually he became a professor of chemistry and pharmacy. Okay, pharmacy is all about medicine and medical. Today also there are lots of students who study pharmacy, but remember it should not be confused with medicine. Okay, studying medical science is completely different from pharmacy. So at the University of Jena, Daubeney made the first observations on platinum as a catalyst and discovered similar triads of elements which led to the development of the periodic table of elements. And it led to the development of the periodic table. After his ideas, other scientists like Mendeleev, Dmitri Mendeleev. He used his ideas and extended them further. And then the modern periodic table was developed because of Mendeleev's efforts. So you see, this is always scientific observations, and scientific development is always a continuous process. The previous scientists who started this, you see, even in physics, people like Galileo, Newton, okay, and many others, they contributed something that is felt even today in physics. That is why we always hear the names when it comes to physics. People like Galileo and Newton's names are almost immortal. Okay, Newland's laws of octaves. All right, that was Doberniers. Now Newland's law of octaves. The word octave, octa means 8. So obviously, like triads, group of 3. Okay, Newland's, another chemist, he arranged elements in groups of 7 and then 8 one. You see, when he arranged these elements in this way, he found that the properties of the first one and the 8th one were similar. Just like the notes of a music, okay, music mein notes kaise hote hain, like for example, in the Indian system we have got sa, re, ga, ma, pa, da, ni, sa. Sa is again repeated, but when is it repeated? The 8th note. 8th musical note is again sa. So if you look at my fingers, sa, re, ga, ma, pa, da, ni, okay, that is 7, and then 8th one is like the first one, that is sa. So every 8th one was similar to the first one. That is what Newland found. That is, when he arranged all the atomic, at that time there were about 56 known elements. He arranged them in the order of increasing atomic masses. When he did this, he found that the first one and the 8th one were similar in properties. And he called this the law of octaves. The attempts of Daubeney encouraged other chemists to correlate the properties of elements with their atomic masses. Okay, this was an attempt to study the properties, physical and chemical properties of elements, and try to correlate with their atomic mass. In 1866, John Newland, an English scientist, arranged the then known elements in the order of increasing atomic masses. He started with the element having the lowest atomic mass, that is hydrogen, and ended at thorium, which was the 56th element at that time. He found that every 8th element had properties similar to that of the first element. He compared this to the octaves found in music. Okay, the octaves are notes in music. Therefore, he called it the law of octaves. It is known as Newland's law of octaves. In Newland's octaves, the properties of lithium and sodium were found to be the same. Sodium is the 8th element after lithium. Lithium is the first one and sodium is the 8th one. So lithium and sodium have similar properties, the first one and the 8th one. Similarly, beryllium and magnesium also resemble each other. A part of the original form of Newland's octave is given in table 5.3, and we'll just have a look at that. Alright, see this now. This is much easier to, you can see Newland's octaves. You see right at the top, you can see the notes, okay, the 7 notes, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Sa, re, ga, ma, pa, dha, ni, and then the 8th one is again sa, and it is repeated. Okay, so every 8th note is similar. Okay, every 8th note on this side is similar to the first note sa. In music, in the same way, in Western music also, the same thing: do, re, mi, fa, so, la, ti, and then again do. It is not do, it is do. Do, re, mi, fa, so, la, ti. Okay, those are the same thing like sa, re, ga, ma, pa. These are musical notes in Western music. And he found, say for example, look at the second one, sa, re, lithium, sodium, potassium, copper, and rubidium. You can see lithium and sodium, their properties are same. But lithium, if you start with lithium, and then the 8th one would be sodium. Similarly, if you start with beryllium, then the 8th one would be magnesium. Okay, but when he did this, it was nice, it looked good. Okay, the properties were also similar. But then one problem occurred. When he came to copper and nickel, okay, cobalt and nickel, Co for cobalt, Cu for copper. But when he came to cobalt, Co, cobalt, and nickel, Ni, he found that there was a problem. Okay, so what he did is, the properties were, you see, I mean, chlorine for example, look at that group Sa, okay, hydrogen, fluorine, chlorine, cobalt and nickel, and bromine. Now if you look at fluorine, chlorine and bromine, fluorine in the first group, fluorine, chlorine and bromine, they are non-metals. Okay, their properties are similar. Okay, in the modern periodic table, they are put in the same group. Okay, which one? Fluorine, chlorine, and bromine. So, if their properties are similar, what about hydrogen? Hydrogen can be classified as a metal or a non-metal. That was a question. Okay, at that time, because it's late. I will come to. We'll discuss about the position of hydrogen later on. But look at, hydrogen is a gas. Okay, fluorine, chlorine, and bromine are non-metals. At the same time, cobalt and nickel are metals, and the properties of cobalt and nickel are completely different from the properties of fluorine, chlorine, and bromine. So when he did this, similarly look at the fourth one, Sare Gamo No. Okay, you can see Bal, aluminium. Okay, boron, aluminium, chromium. Y is I don't know what Y stands for, because there are 118 elements. Remember that. Then cesium and lawrencium. I think La is lawrencium. Okay, their properties were again similar, but they could not be classified in the same group, and there were difficulties there. So although Newland's octaves, notes of Newland's law of octaves was useful, it was a good attempt at classification, but there were certain anomalies, or there were certain discrepancies, and not everything worked out smoothly. But it was a good beginning, and it laid the groundwork for further classification. Okay, so let us see the next one. Are you familiar with musical notes? Okay, let us see. In the Indian system of music, there are 7 musical notes in a scale, that is Sa Re Ga Ma Pa Dha Ni Sa. In the West, they use the notations Do, Re, Mi, Fa, So, La, Ti. The notes in a scale are separated by whole and half step frequency intervals of tones in semitones, high and low frequencies. A musician uses these notes for composing a music or a song. Okay, naturally there must be some repetition of notes. There will be repetitions. Okay, there will be more repetitions, and in any musical note, if you see the good thing, if you are someone who is listening to a lot of songs and all that, you will find that in the same song certain notes are repeated, and that is why we like it. Everything is not completely different. You listen to your favorite music, you will see there are repetitions in the music. Okay, so that is what is called rhythm. Okay, every 8th note, naturally there must be some repetition of notes. Every 8th note is similar to the first one, and it is the first note of the next scale. Alright, it was found that the law of octaves was applicable only up to calcium, as after calcium every 8th element did not possess properties similar to that of the first. Now you see, at that time 56 elements were known. As more and more elements were being discovered, the law of octaves could not hold properly. You see, it began to fail. It was found that the law of octaves was applicable only up to calcium, as after calcium every 8th element did not possess properties similar to the first one. It was assumed by Newland that only 56 elements existed in nature at that time, because only 56 were known. But later on, of course, several new elements were discovered whose properties did not fit into the law of octaves, and that's why the law of octaves did not stand scrutiny. In order to fit elements into his table, Newland adjusted 2 elements in the same slot, for example cobalt and nickel, but also put some unlike elements under the same note. Okay, so cobalt and nickel, he put them along with chlorine and bromine. Chlorine and fluorine are not similar to cobalt and nickel. Can you find examples from the table? Note that cobalt and nickel are in the same slot or in the same group, and these are placed in the same column as fluorine, chlorine, and bromine, which are completely different. Okay, they are not metals like cobalt and nickel. Yeah, iron, which resembles cobalt and nickel in properties, has been placed far away from these elements. Fe is iron. Okay, it's not in the same group. Although Fe is similar to nickel, it is similar to cobalt, but it is being placed in a separate group. With the discovery of noble gases, the law of octaves became irrelevant. Now, the noble gases, argon, xenon, helium, neon, argon, krypton, xenon, radon, these are inactive, or what are called noble gases, and they are put in group 0, the last group, group 18 of the periodic table. But when these elements were discovered in the early part of the 20th century, then you see Newland's law of octaves become completely irrelevant. Okay, thus Newland's law of octaves worked well with lighter elements only, but with the heavier elements, it began to fall apart. Alright, thus Newland's law of octaves worked well with lighter elements only. Alright, now we come to another important section, making order of Mendeleev's periodic table. Now you see, when you study periodic table, the word or rather the name Mendeleev, it is almost synonymous with classification of elements. You see, when we talk about the modern periodic table, and you look at the modern periodic table, you ask anyone who has studied chemistry, they will tell you the first name that comes to mind is Dmitry Mendeleev, a Russian scientist, a Russian chemist. Dmitry Ivanovich Mendeleev. This man actually started work which led to the modern periodic table. His contribution was fantastic. But remember, at the same time, okay, Dobronius and even Newlands, okay, Dobronius and Newlands, they also made very important contributions. But it was Mendeleev who really set the ball in motion. Even after the rejection of Newland's law of octaves, many scientists continued to search for a pattern that correlated the properties of elements with their atomic masses. Okay, so obviously the work of classification continued. The main credit for classifying element goes to Dmitry Ivanovich Mendeleev, a Russian chemist. He was the most important contributor to the early development of the periodic table of elements, wherein the elements were arranged on the basis of their fundamental property, the atomic mass, and also on the similarity of chemical properties. In fact, you see, Dmitry Mendeleev actually gave the law, periodic law. His periodic law was what? The properties of elements are the periodic function of their atomic mass. The properties of elements are the periodic function of their atomic mass. This was the Mendeleev's law of classification. And in fact, this is, although you see we study Mendeleev because of the contribution and because he made the earliest classifications. And the process is important, how he did it. Okay, what he did was he arranged elements in the whole table. You see what he did was it on a wall. At that time there were 63 elements. It's all given here. There were 63 elements. These 63 elements, he made small placards, small cards, you see, with cardboard or anything. He just made cards of equal size, one for each element. Okay, and then he began to stick them on the wall. He would stick similar elements together, okay, and this similar elements separately. Then in this way he made periods, okay, vertical columns which he called them groups, and horizontal rows he called them periods. He began to classify them on a wall. He put them together in groups and periods, and that is how the earliest classification began. Before that, there was no attempt at one single table where all the elements can be grouped together in one single table and you can look at them, and that is why his contribution was very good. All right. Now a little bit about Mendeleev is given out here. Dmitry, his full name Ivanovich Mendeleev, 1834 to 1907, was born in Tobolsk in Western Siberia, which is a very cold place, Russia, on 8th February 1834. After his early education, Mendeleev could join a university only due to the efforts of his mother. His mother took a lot of interest in his education. Dedicating his investigations to his mother, he wrote, "She instructed with example, always setting an example, corrected with love and traveled with me to places spending her last resources and strength." Last resources here probably means financial resources. Whatever money she had, she spent on her son's education. And I suppose that is the best way to spend money, really. Most parents, you ask them, it's not about buying a big house or buying a big car or something like that. It's about spending money on your children's education. And nothing can be better than that. And that's why all of you are lucky. You see, your parents are spending a lot of money on your education. That is fantastic. The best thing that your parents can give you is a wonderful education, and you are lucky to have that. Alright, so this is what Mendeleev's mother did for Mendeleev. She knew that with the aid of science, now this sentence is extremely important, and I hope you remember it for the rest of your life. She knew that with the aid of science, without violence, with love but firmness, all superstitions, untruth and errors can be removed from society. Today also, our society is plagued with all kinds of superstitions and stupid ideology and beliefs. Okay, but science can get rid of all of them. When students go to universities and colleges, your way of thinking, what you think is more important, how things are, the idea of logic, applying logic to logic and scientific principles to everything around us. You see, that helps you to build up a scientific temperament, and that is what happened with Mendeleev. Alright, the arrangement Okay, the arrangement of elements he proposed is called the Mendeleev's periodic table. So we have got the modern periodic table, before that the Mendeleev's periodic table. The periodic table proved to be the unifying principle in chemistry. It was the motivation for the discovery of some new elements. So his contribution was in chemistry. The word Mendeleev, the name Mendeleev is synonymous with fantastic investigation and scientific research. When Mendeleev started his work, there were 63 elements which were known. He examined the relationship between the atomic masses of the elements and their physical and chemical properties. Among chemical properties, Mendeleev concentrated on the compounds formed by hydrogen and oxygen. Why? Because both of them, hydrogen and oxygen, are extremely reactive, and lots of elements combine with hydrogen and oxygen. So most of the 63 elements, you see, they would combine with hydrogen and oxygen to form hydrides and oxides. So he selected this especially. He selected hydrogen and oxygen as they were very reactive and formed compounds with the most elements. The formula of hydrides and oxides: compounds with hydrogen are called hydrides, compounds with oxygen are called oxides. Formed by any element were treated as one of the basic properties of elements for its classification. He then took 63 cards. Okay, this is what I was talking about. He took 63 cards, and on each card he wrote down the properties of one element. He would take one card, for example, he would write down, okay, sodium, and then he would write the properties of sodium, its atomic mass, its properties, physical and chemical, and then he would stick it on a wall. He sorted out the elements, okay, with similar properties and pinned the cards together on the wall. He observed that most of the elements got a place in the periodic table and were arranged in the order of increasing atomic masses. It was also observed that there occurs a periodic recurrence. Recurrence means once again to come into life. Recurrence of elements with similar physical and chemical properties. On this basis, Mendeleev made up or formulated a periodic law which states that this is the important modern periodic law, and this is the Mendeleev's periodic law. The properties of elements are the periodic functions of their atomic masses. Now you see, atomic masses, if you change it to atomic numbers, it becomes the modern periodic law. Okay, there is only one difference between the modern periodic law and Mendeleev's periodic law. In Mendeleev's periodic law, the word atomic masses is there, and in the modern periodic law, it becomes atomic numbers instead of atomic masses. And that is the only change. But of course, when it came to classification, it made a huge difference. When atomic numbers were used, then it changed everything. And today we use atomic numbers for basis of classification. Mendeleev's periodic table contains vertical columns called groups and horizontal rows called periods. Just a couple of things state Mendeleev's periodic law. This is Mendeleev's periodic law. What is it? The properties of elements are the periodic functions of their atomic masses. Alright, then this is the Mendeleev's periodic table. Okay, group 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. 8 groups are there, and you look downwards. Okay, there are periods 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6 periods. So in Mendeleev's periodic table, there were 6 periods and 8 groups. Okay, let's have a look once again. Okay, 8 groups here and 6 periods. And he arranged all the elements, the 63 elements which were known at this time, in increasing order of atomic masses, not atomic number. Okay. Okay, Mendeleev's periodic table was published in the German journal. Okay, in Germany, in a German journal in 1872. In the formula for oxides and hydrides, at the top of the column, the letter R is used to represent any of the elements in the group. Note the way formulas are written. For example, the hydride of carbon is written as CH4. But today we know CH4 is methane gas. Okay, is written as RH4. R stands for carbon, but not necessarily carbon. It stands for any element. Okay, and the oxide CO2, that is carbon dioxide, which is an oxide of carbon, is written as RO2, where R can be any element, not just carbon. Okay, now we'll come to achievements of Mendeleev's periodic table, then his limitations, and the modern periodic law. Alright, I'll stop here today. We'll carry on further from here. What I want you to understand is that this classification, this chapter number 5, we are doing it because it is going to be included in the next week. We are going to have a 50 marks test. In this 50 marks test, this chapter is included. Okay. Now I'm almost certain that this part which you have discussed today probably will not be included in the test, because from this chapter only the modern periodic table which we are going to discuss now tomorrow, okay, that part is included in the test, or rather in the board exams. But whatever it is, we'll discuss the whole chapter. Okay, meanwhile keep working hard and prepare for your exams. Stay safe, stay at home, stay healthy. Thank you. Have a nice day.